Hello and welcome back to the On the Slab Horror Show, the show that we bring to you each and every, Carl, what day?
Friday night. And why is it Friday night?
Because
Friday
Friday
night
night,
is
baby.
horror night. Woo!
See, I included you in the intro
You
this time.
did. Yay! And of course,
I don't know if it worked quite as well, but
hey,
we'll go with it.
It was fine. Of course, we did it on Friday because on Fridays we used to get our free to air Channel 4 films, and I'm sure Gary remembers watching horror films on Channel 4 late at night, so that's why we do it as a little tribute to that. So,
Brilliant.
but yeah, so Greg, how have you been?
I'm not too bad. It's good to have you back again.
You're always on your own doing this show. Jesus, you're just like an episode machine. Like, you know, it's unbelievable.
Hashtag forever alone.
Oh, poor Gary. Poor Greg.
No, it's good to have you back.
Cheers.
Sometimes the episodes just fall when people aren't available. So
That's it. Well, yeah. So
this one benefited us that yourself's available as well. You watched this before I did,
yeah.
But tonight we're joined, as you can see, we have a guest below us, it's below us on my screen, who was the co-director of Hollywood and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story, a documentary film based on the man that actually stemmed my love for horror. He was part of the first horror movie that I ever watched, in Nightmare on Elm Street. So this one was a big one for me when it was coming out, and I was like, yeah, we have to move on this one. And obviously Gary himself there is part of Dead Mouse Productions as well. So they produced this for Screambox, where this is an exclusive, so make sure and check it out if you're actually able to get Screambox. Gary, how are you, sir?
Yeah, good. Yeah, I'm brilliant. I'm just kind of it's been a kind of whirlwind few weeks with the release. We had a really great release last year on one of our documentaries, Pennywise. But this has just been
fantastic,
unbelievable. This release has been. I mean, the amount of press and the really positive reviews on it. And obviously, I know Robert's been doing lots of interviews as well for it. So it's been a really kind of strange, surreal, 3 weeks since the release of it. The US release. Obviously, it's coming out in the UK, hopefully by October. So it's been very strange but great.
Well, as of the time of recording this interview, just before we hit record, I checked on Rotten Tomatoes. It's at 92%.
Yeah, bastards. That's because of the New York Times gave us a really shit review. It's
fuck the New York Times.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fucking ridiculous review. I mean, it's kind of like they're obviously not horror fans. It was the only negative review we had, and it kind of.
I'm sorry, but the Rotten Tomatoes, you get people that review horror films really badly or horror documentaries really badly, and you go down, you can read some of the reviews, and it's like, I don't like horror. Then don't fucking review it, you cunt.
We had someone review Pennywise, and they said, don't watch this if you like Stephen King's It. Well, that's the fucking point of the documentary. It's like, well, that's obvious, isn't it? You wouldn't watch it, but I mean, the critics kind of weird. I prefer the fans giving feedback, because that's what, I get. Obviously, it's great having good reviews, but if you're not a horror fan and you're not a genre fan, you're not going to find the love in the doc, which is supposed to be there, really. But fans like yourself will find that love. It's a love letter. That's what the whole point.
Well, Gary, I honestly think if you're a horror fan, obviously you're going to like it. But I also think if you're a documentary fan, a good documentary fan, I would absolutely, and I'm not just saying this, I would show this to anybody who even had a fleeting interest in horror, because let's be honest, almost everyone knows who Robert Englund is.
I think the point of the doc as well, it's about kind of an actor's journey as well. So it's about Hollywood and about somebody who's come from the stage to TV to screen and obviously to the big screen. So obviously horror is important to Robert, and it shaped his career, but there's loads in that documentary which isn't horror, especially the early days, with theatre and kind of dramas.
He's in so much that we it's some cool stuff,
like everybody knows obviously Michael Myers, Jason and stuff, but for me, I've said it multiple times over the years and a lot on this show, like Freddy Krueger was the one who changed and probably saved slashers for a long time, because obviously he wasn't the slow, methodical, no talking. Obviously, in the documentary, you go into it that he wasn't the stuntman cast because they were behind the mask. He had lines, he had dialogue, he had humor, and he exploded into into the stratosphere, really.
Did yeah. I mean, especially like the pop culture as well. You know, you think of everybody knows who Freddy Krueger is, even if you haven't watched the film. You can say Freddy Krueger to somebody of a certain age, anybody maybe over the age of 20, and they know who Freddy Krueger is. They know that image. It's the man with the claws. It's the man with the hat, you know, and the striped jumper.
Yeah.
I love that, the dirty brown hat.
Yeah. So
but
yeah,
this here isn't obviously just based on Freddy. Obviously, Freddy being his iconic role, but this man, like, there's stuff in this documentary that I didn't know. Like, he helped shape some big sci-fi movies. Obviously, you go into him telling Mark Hamill about Star Wars and stuff. Like,
that was
that's
class.
ridiculous.
I mean, Mark Hamill will probably deny it. I remember seeing a tweet. I remember seeing a tweet from Mark Hamill a few years ago because Robert had said it before on a panel, and everyone was talking about it. When he went like, you know, huge at one stage. Robert Englund, you know, helped Mark Hamill get the role, and Mark Hamill did a tweet saying my agent got me the role, and then we actually approached Mark's people for the doc, and they refused to do it. But you know what? Robert tells a story. We've got a photograph of Robert and Mark together. You know, they obviously had a friendship. Why would Robert really make that up? He's been saying it for the last 40 years. So, fuck it. I believe it.
I believe it.
Like,
yeah,
I get that. Like, he says his agent, but like, even in the documentary, you hear him saying, "I told him to think," and he got on the phone to his agent. So technically, his agent would have got him the role, but someone had told him that this is happening.
I mean, I know. Obviously, people have, you know, very rose-tinted memories of certain things, don't they? And also, obviously, you know, there's loyalty between, obviously, I imagine Mark Hamill and his agent at the time. But at the end of the day, it's a fun Hollywood story.
Yeah,
it shows about the time as well. Particularly, you know, you think when you watch the doc, and it's about people auditioning for Apocalypse Now and Carrie at the same time, and then went on to obviously Star Wars. So it shows obviously how Hollywood was, where, you know, these young actors were being picked out from different roles. You know, you go to you audition for one film, you end up in another film. And we all know about Harrison Ford. You know, he was a carpenter on set. You know, and that's how he got. You know,
it's mad, isn't it? Like, you just can't imagine. Imagine auditioning for Apocalypse Now, and next thing you know, then hold on, I'll just have to run over to this stage over here.
Well, it wouldn't happen now, would it? It wouldn't happen these days.
No,
sure, it's just ridiculous now. But like, I was looking at it, and there's some things, as it says, the Star Wars story was great. Him helping John Carpenter for Halloween, picking up the leaves. Like, there you go. There's two
DNA
films.
is everywhere. It's everywhere.
He's either that or he's a nosy geek. He's one or the other. But yeah, he definitely, you know, I think again being Hollywood in the 70s, you know, his connection to Arnold Schwarzenegger on Stay Hungry.
Stay Hungry,
that one I did know about now. That one I'd heard that story before somewhere. I was like,
he's been around. I mean, even like Richard Dreyfuss, you know, he was in college with Richard Dreyfuss, you know, who went on to do obviously Jaws and Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
So Robert's definitely got that connection with a lot of people in Hollywood. You know, Burt Reynolds, you know, Henry Fonda. The list goes on of people he worked with.
Iconic.
Yeah, definitely.
Lynn Shay is obviously another big one as well.
Yeah, definitely.
No,
I think they've been together on 4 or 5 films now at this stage.
So there's Midnight Man. There's
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Nightmare on Elm Street. New Nightmare. She was in that as well. Nurse.
At least 4 or 5. She's another legend of horror.
Really. You look at her career as well. You know, she's been around a long time, and she gets Insidious. And then she reinvented herself. Well, it's funny when you look at you watch something about Mary. It's like you wouldn't think that was Lynn Shay, you know, with that dog and the fake pan. You know, you wouldn't think it was her. And then she reinvents herself in horror.
Yeah.
Horror. I think Tony Todd says in the doc that horror ends up always saving. You know, Hollywood. It always does.
Yeah. Does actually. Yeah.
And it saves actors as well to a degree. You know, a lot of that.
It also generates new actors. Really, like you think about it, Jennifer Aniston started in the likes of Leprechaun, Leonardo DiCaprio, Depp. Obviously DiCaprio was in Critters 3.
Yeah, Brad Pitt was in Freddy's Nightmares, a TV series.
That's right. Yeah.
You know. So you know, a lot of actors. You know, Henry Cavill was in Hellraiser 6, I think it was, Hellraiser 7.
Oh, right.
I don't think I got by 2.
But so I mean, I think a lot of, because obviously it's low budget horror, and because it is, unfortunately, back in the 80s and 90s and probably 2000s as well, it was looked down upon. A lot of people get their start. I think it's changed now. I think, you know, with Blumhouse, horror's definitely changed.
84 as well.
Yeah, Yeah, and there's just money there. People know you'll make an absolute fortune on horror now. You know, they know they will.
And I think even now the resurgence of indie horror making it to the cinema. Obviously, we're seeing Terrifier and stuff
Sci-fi,
last year.
yeah. I think so.
Phenomenal. But like when you look at Robert himself, like he changed horror for the better. Really, he
Yeah.
became the first real superstar.
Yeah, he did basically. Yeah.
Obviously, Jamie Lee Curtis became the Scream Queen, but Robert Englund was the superstar. He was everywhere.
Yeah. And I think the difference as well, Robert, you've got obviously Michael Myers was huge and Leatherface was huge in the 70s, and then Jason in the early 80s. But I think Robert himself became a superstar as well as Freddy and they were so close because, we've talked at the very beginning of this interview, that obviously most of them were stuntmen, and behind a mask. Because Robert's personality came out in the character, not only did it kind of elevate the character of Freddy, it elevated Robert as an actor as well, which hadn't happened before. The person who played Michael Myers, Nick Castle, only he's very popular now, but that's taken 40 years for him to become like really iconic.
Yeah.
If you would have mentioned Nick Castle's name in 1982, no one would have known who he was. Yeah. But Robert Englund, as soon as 84 came out, people started knowing his name. By the time Elm Street 3 came out, Dream Warriors, I mean, he was a superstar, wasn't he?
It's like poor David Prowse with the man behind you, Darth Vader.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like David Prowse. You only really probably. I mean, I know that David Prowse had the whole issue, obviously, with the non-disclosure with German Jedi, and then it wasn't him, all that kind of bullshit. Banned from all the celebration conventions, but again, it's only in maybe the late 90s. When the convention circuit started, he gets recognised.
Getting the recognition he deserves.
Yeah, but it takes people a long time. I mean, it took a lot of people a long time, but I think someone like Robert, as we said, because when you meet Robert in person, it's just a strange experience when you first meet him because you're sitting next to him having a drink and whatnot.
Yeah.
Even the way he moves and certain features on his face, it's Freddy.
Oh, deadly.
The makeup's not there, obviously. Of course. He's got a big bushy grey beard and whatnot, but it's just the way he moves his body and the way he kind of just sits in a chair and he'll move his head. It's so weird. You know that he's Freddy Krueger.
Yeah. But you can. I mean, I know they brought out or whatever, but there is only one Freddy Krueger. There'll only ever be one Freddy Krueger.
And I think that's a kind of shame as well to a degree because we all love Robert as Freddy, and I think the problem is the franchise will always be stuck.
Yeah.
Until unfortunately, Robert's no longer here, where there's no excuse for him not to do it. And I think that's the fear. I think a little bit with we talk about a remake, another one with obviously Blumhouse. Want Robert back into it. Robert doesn't want to do it. I get why.
I think for me it'd be a mistake to bring him back. As much as everyone wants it, and as much as I'd love it, the only way I could think of him doing it is if he's basically handing it off to the next.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's probably two ways of doing it. I think one, you could have obviously Robert as the core Freddy evil, and then obviously the rest of the Freddy you see obviously is the like you see New Nightmare, the Snake, and the Puppet Master, and
that was brilliant.
Yeah, or you look at. I think you just you talk about physicality of a role. You look at Indiana Jones. You've got Harrison Ford doing Indiana Jones still, looking quite good doing it. You've got obviously some other older actors coming back doing films, but I think with Robert, I think you look at Stranger Things and season 4 with Vecna.
Yeah.
Vecna, he's quite a powerful character in that season 4. But he doesn't do anything. He just stands there. He literally just stands there, waving his hand about a bit. And it's like, he's so powerful in that because his presence is felt. If you did a Freddy Krueger film now where you don't need Robert jumping around, cutting his fingers off, and if he's just if he's a dark presence and there's other beings or entities around him, you could do it really well. But again, I don't know. I mean, I know that Robert's had some ideas a few years ago about how he would do it. You just can't have Robert. You can't have Freddy Krueger jumping around doing wisecracking anymore. No. It won't work in 2023. It just won't work. Yeah.
I think the new Nightmare version of him, I know it was a demon, but that darker version.
Yeah, and I've grown to love that one a lot more. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't like it because it was so far away from obviously, the original Freddy. I mean, now I've grown to. I love the costume on him now.
Yeah.
Go on.
No, go ahead.
That's when you see the costume, obviously in natural light, where there's it's not on film, it's behind the scenes. It looks beautiful. The makeup looks amazing. Whereas on film, it looks really kind of like a plastic mask. It's really weird.
Yeah.
The detail in that face when the lights aren't on it. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's a shame because I think they could have done a lot more with him. You know, the leather coat and the he's wearing his hat and whatnot. You know, and the weird glove he's got. But I think it's a great look.
Yeah.
The as Carl said there, it's a lot darker. But that scene in the movie when he's talking to Heather on the phone,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Oh, he's back." What do you mean he's back? He's darker.
Yeah.
Like Craven, bringing Craven back, or Craven coming back to do that one was phenomenal, because at that stage it was the franchise was dying.
Oh yeah, it was mad. I mean, you have to. I mean, I like the franchise, of course, you know, and
So do I.
I even like, I like Freddy's Dead, but it's so corny. Freddy's Dead, so cartoony. The whole thing with the fucking, when he's playing the computer game on his arm and he's fucking the guy, but it's so weird. But I don't think Freddy actually kills anybody with the glove in that film. If I remember, he does everything.
No, it's all done. Everything's done differently. Yeah.
But I just think I like the look of Freddy, Matt. And I know the look of Freddy changes for every single film. But I like the makeup in that one. I think it looks really. It looks a little bit more like the first film. It's like with the big kind of wounds on his face, and it's a bit more raw.
Yeah.
But again, people criticise it, and they criticise the Elm Street franchise. I mean, I think the Evil Dead film was come out, didn't it? If you watched that, the new Evil Dead.
Evil Dead Rises, yeah.
Yeah.
Loved
it. Two of the kids obviously talk about the Freddy films, and the guy goes, not the shit ones. And like, and it's kind of that's the perception, that after probably 4, they went shit, and I think I've got a lot of love for him still, because I think, again, I just love the character of Freddy. You can't beat Freddy Krueger on screen, can you really?
No.
To be fair to every franchise, not just taking a shot at Nightmare on Elm Street or anything, like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw, Hellraiser, they've all had bad entries. Well, not bad entries, but weaker entries.
Hellraiser definitely has, Hellraiser had the 3 or 4, which was straight to video, which weren't even Hellraiser films, just took pin at him. But
I'm not a Hellraiser fan anyway, so I was like,
I did a documentary on it, so I've got to be. But I think the weird thing about, obviously, the franchise is, you're always going to get people criticising these films. It seems like, Halloween, the new ones.
Love them too.
Yeah, and people, and the new Leatherface on Netflix. I mean, people moan about it. No, but what do you actually want? Seriously, it's like you've got a guy with a chainsaw who's in Texas, who wears people's faces. What more story do you actually want?
I don't want any more. I just want the original.
I gotta stop you there, right? What I wanted from that was them not to nerf the original story.
Yeah.
And make it so out there that nobody was likable in the film.
Yeah, but they did that with Halloween, didn't they? I mean, I like Halloween and Halloween Ends and Halloween Kills. I like them, but they did the same. I think by ignoring, particularly the second film, I think what you do, I think they ignored Donald Pleasance's legacy, and he carried that franchise, Donald Pleasance did, right to the 6th film. Yeah, and the 6th film's not that great. But when you ignore his legacy and go, oh yeah, number 2, 3, and 4, and 5 didn't happen.
Yeah, no. To be fair, we've said that on episodes as well, that it kind of ignored things, but that Texas Chainsaw, the 22 one, was dreadful.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you again, it's like maybe you try and have a killer who's in his 70s. I mean, well, you did obviously with Halloween, didn't you? Really, they shouldn't have set it now. I mean, I like bits of it. I like the look of him in the new one, but I don't know what you're saying.
The mask was fantastic.
Yeah, I think he did a good job on that look of it, but I think you're right. I think the characters who are being killed, you've got to have some empathy for these people. You've got to care. I wanted that woman to die straight away, all of them. And when he chopped her head off at the end, I was like, fucking good. You didn't put any.
Those the 2 sisters.
Yeah, and they even like having the bird from the first one come back by a different actress. I didn't give a fuck about her.
Yeah, and you should have.
I thought that was absolutely ridiculous. Like, that was a blatant rip.
Oh, Halloween, yeah. But done really bad, compared to Halloween. But then again, what does Jamie Lee Curtis in Halloween, 2 does jack shit. She just fucking lies in the hospital the whole film.
Yeah.
But again, I like Halloween Kills. I think it's the best one of the 3 of them. Halloween Kills.
Yeah.
I think the second one.
It's definitely the one where you got the Michael that everyone wanted, the viciousness.
Yeah. See, but the third one, I didn't have a problem with it. I watched it and everyone was criticising and going,
I enjoyed it.
He's a wimp and that, and and this Corey character. So what? It's supposed to be an evil transitioning. It's supposed to be, and the whole point is that evil does transition. Evil's infectious. I mean,
Yeah.
they shouldn't have killed Corey. They shouldn't have at the end. They
I don't
should
think so. I agree
have
with
kept
you.
him alive to continue it. But I didn't have a problem with that. And again, it was Carpenter and going fuck you to the fans really to a degree, because you know he's like Carpenter. He doesn't give a
Yeah.
fuck,
Yeah.
and he knows. I mean, he did it with Season of the Witch. You
That's
know,
I
right.
love
Yeah.
that though.
and it's
I
a
love it.
fucking great film. But at the
Yeah.
time, it was absolutely slammed. But he was saying "fuck you" to the fans because I'm not going to do another fucking slasher.
Yeah.
So he did something different and pissed people off. I think he did deliberately the same thing for this one. I think he got together with obviously the writers and went, let's not give people what they want. Let's do something different.
So I actually said on our episode about that, I actually says the last Halloween Ends was very similar to Halloween Kills. It was done in
Yeah.
that kind of fashion where it was like we're gonna do something over here that you're gonna watch and not see what's happening.
Well, Chris made a good point. Obviously, my co-director and obviously partner in the company.
Mm.
He said that Halloween Ends, the whole Corey story, should have been the second film, and then the third. Because I think it should,
Yeah.
you wanted a better ending for Michael, really, and I think you didn't get a better ending for Michael. There should have been that influence of evil in the
Yeah.
second film, and then Corey dies, and then Michael comes back, because obviously the resurgence of evil and whatnot. I think the problem with Michael in the third film, and I didn't mind the Corey character. But the problem is he dies too. He's quick as well, and when she's beating the shit out of him, she's just she's a fucking 7-year-old woman beating the shit out of him. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's meant to be pure evil, and he doesn't really do fucking like. He just lies there and gets his
Lies
throat slit.
Yeah.
So
And she puts a fridge on him. Anyway,
yeah,
digressing.
this is what we said. We get
Yeah.
sidetracked onto things,
Well,
but
let's get back to you. That's I was just going to try and get a word in there. We have done the show arseways now.
No,
As
it's
in,
fine. Don't worry.
no, we kind of wing it and see where it goes. But
I'm a horror fan, so hopefully that's my credentials being a
I'd
horror.
have never have guessed.
but so look, Gary, tell us how you got into, or well, how were you able to get to do the film? Give us a bit of a background.
So I'll give you the very brief story.
Yeah.
It's quite long. So we obviously set up. Well, my first ever project was a book on the Return of the Living Dead, and that was in 2010. I wrote a book on that. It's my favourite film of all time, The Return of the Living Dead.
Deadly.
My close friend Don Cowper was in it. He played Ernie, the Undertaker.
Oh, cool.
I became really friendly with him. He was over in the UK lots of times with us here, and we went to the States to him. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago.
Oh.
Anyway, so I did a book on that franchise, and then my friend Mikey Perez, and he was working with a guy called Tommy Hudson. They just done a documentary, Never Sleep Again, the Elm Street Legacy.
That's that 7-hour one. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. It basically covers the whole of the fucking.
Very good now it is.
Elm
But
Street. It's amazing, yeah. But it covers all the films. So he'd done that, Mikey had, and they were doing a documentary on Return of the Dead called More Brains, and they kind of asked me, did I want to be involved and write it? And because I wrote the book, it was quite easy, to be honest. But what it did, it taught me how to do narrative for documentaries and how to actually, we call it a script edit. So you interview people, you get transcribes, and then you edit the transcribes into a narrative form, which the editor then takes and then puts onto obviously the editing suite and makes for doc, and you would tweak it and stuff like that. So there's lots of involvement. So I got involved in that, did that documentary and More Brains, and then at the same time I was putting on screenings in Birmingham, obviously in the UK, and I did Return of the Living Dead screening with Don. Don came over for a Q&A. We did that in Birmingham in a place called the Custard Factory. It used to be a custard factory, and now it's it's been made into a cinema and stuff like that. And Don came over for that, but one of the people who came and bought a ticket was Chris Griffiths. And obviously I was already friends with Adam Evans, our co-partner in the business, and obviously we were putting on these events, but Chris came as a kind of punter, and I got friendly with him. We got chatty, and obviously you become friends with people. And then we did a screen of Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2 with the cast. We had obviously Simon Bamford, Nicholas Vince, Kenneth Branagh, blah blah blah, and then we did one on Manhunter with Brian Cox, the original Hannibal Lecter.
Oh.
Yeah. And he became patron of our company. Brian did before Succession, way before that. But at the same time, we started going, why don't we do our own documentary? No one's ever done one on Hellraiser before. It's a British film. The first film is, in the second film is everybody's here, apart from a couple of people in the States. Let's do a doc. And we were very naive and green. We did the documentary. It took us over a year to make. We interviewed about 50 people over here in the UK and obviously in the States. We had a really strange director who we were working with, but Chris kind of took over that directing duties. And then we released it as a fucking 7-hour documentary, which was ridiculously long, fucking stupid. But people loved it. The fans loved it being 7 hours, even though it was only covering 2 films. But we went like literally into minute detail on the making of it. Dissecting the scenes, dissecting the effects, and then that led on to You Also Call Brewster, the story of Fright Night, and then led on to obviously filming Pennywise, the story of it. Led on to RoboDot, the creation of RoboCop, Police Academy documentary, and then obviously what do we do next in between these projects will be in post production. Obviously, there's no point in covering Nightmare on Elm Street because it'd been done. We'd never sleep again. So I really wanted to work with Robert. So I basically just did the whole thing, approached Robert through his wife Nancy, and then just pitched the idea of a documentary about his life really, and he got fully engaged literally from the moment we started talking. He was, I think, because we were doing a documentary on his whole career, and it wasn't Freddie centric. Freddie's important, and the documentary is supposed to be about this actor who's a working actor on the stage and theatre, and goes into TV, gets this role with Freddy Krueger, blows up, and he becomes an icon and a rock star. Yeah, at the same time, it limits his career because he then becomes the icon.
Yeah.
Does that then have a negative impact on him then, regards to getting other roles? Robert should have been in dramas as an older man. He should have been in these HBO series. He should have been in the Game of Thrones. He should have been. He then became typecast because of horror. But then the twist is then obviously how important horror is. So that's the long, short story of how we got the doc. But so Robert was fully engaged already.
I mean, for yourselves, obviously doing Pennywise to this, you've got to sit down with two of the best character actors in the business. Obviously with Tim Curry and Robert. Like, when you was going through this, I forgot how many good roles he has.
He does,
obviously, everyone always remembers Freddy. I always remember 2001 Maniacs, but there's a lot more in there.
Oh, there's so much we didn't cover as well. And people, you get the odd fan who go, "Why didn't you cover, Married with Children when he played the devil? Why didn't you cover?"
That was a good episode.
Yeah, it was, yeah. But if we did, we'd be literally there for hours on end.
Another 7-hour episode.
Yeah. There was one there that came up in this that I really did. I have a great interest in, and I always did love Hellraiser, Wishmaster.
Wish was a great film, yeah. And that's one of the kind of first times you kind of see Robert out of the makeup as well. That's 97. He just not long, a couple of years before, had done New Nightmare, a few Disney films, and that's where you start seeing Robert transition then as a horror veteran actor who then starts appearing in a lot of kind of like low budget to medium budget films. Urban Legend, being one of them. Obviously,
that there was a quality movie as well.
And he's great in it, Robert. I mean, he's really. But that's Robert the actor, not Robert Freddy. Playing. That's where you see his acting chops there.
But even in Wishmaster though, he's like that. It's there's no, like, I know it's him, but I'm looking at it going, there's no real elements of Freddy in that one.
No.
Bar maybe that scene when he's on the harbour and he's staring and he gives that look.
Yeah.
And you're like, you could see that.
He's just playing an arsehole, really. That's all he's doing in that, isn't he? And but you're right. I mean, again, but you just look at Robert's earlier stuff. I mean, of course, it's pre-Freddy. But I think the biggest comparison with Robert was always going to be V. It's always going to be because that's where he plays, the friendly alien, and that's the biggest comparison.
I love him in that. I love him.
And he's just so different. So I mean, I think there are some gems that we obviously talked about, and obviously I think Urban Legend, I think he's great in that. I think he's great in Wishmaster as well.
There's a real feel of like his input is all over the documentary. I'm assuming he was totally invested from day one. And
I mean, it's kind of weird because it's like you mentioned about Tim. Tim was very much, we interviewed him when we went, and that was pretty much it. We've interviewed Chris Sarandon, we've interviewed Ronnie Cox, Ray Wise, the list goes on of people, Tom Noonan, Brian Cox, we've interviewed before.
Yeah.
So it kind of like the Bradley. So it kind of they come in, do it, and fuck off basically. And that's great. That's what we need them for. And obviously, but with Robert, the initial deal we had, if you wanted to call it a deal, it wasn't any payment. Robert didn't ask for anything. Wow. But the initial kind of like conversation, he was. I mean, people said to us, "Oh, it's going to cost you want a penny, didn't you know? He wanted to
What
face.
what a man! Like
Yeah,
what
yeah,
other actor, what other
yeah,
icon like that really will turn
yeah,
around and go, no, I'll give you all my
yeah, yeah.
time and
Yeah, and that's how it evolved really. Because the original interview was obviously in the States, so we went over to where he lives in LA, and went to his house, and it was a weird interview. It was a
not
weird
fair.
interview. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was really weird because it kind of like I had a list of questions as you do because you have a narrative in your head of the doc.
Yeah.
I asked him one question, and 3 hours later he stopped talking, and that's no word of a lie. He literally went through his whole entire life. Yeah, and
Wow.
it was so rehearsed in his head, and it felt a little bit. How can I put it? A bit kind of too kind of like stage in a way that it was very much fact,
Yeah, yeah.
and he gave character, of course, and he gave a little bit, himself. But it's what he wanted to talk about. So we filmed that, and we had the great stuff. And we didn't have to film with other people. Then we asked. He told us he was going to be in London a few months later. So we asked, could we do a pickup shot with him? And he agreed. So we went to London to his hotel in London with him. And we did some pickups where we talked mainly about films. It was more about like films like, Dead and Buried and Eaten
Yeah.
Alive and stuff like that, where he gave a little bit more detail on the movies themselves. And you can see in the doc, well, of course you can't, it look different, but you can see how his character starts changing because the first one's where he's in his living room and he's got the picture behind him.
Yeah.
And it's very much kind of like, this is my life, blah, blah. The second one is where I think he's got a black jumper on and he's in a room with flowers in the background in the wall. And he's more talking about film series and about what he's done. Then we need him again. And that was, I think it was just after COVID. It was after COVID, it kind of kicked off. And he was back in the UK with Nancy. We wanted to get Nancy interviewed. So we asked, could we do another one with him then? And we needed more stuff about his family, because
Yeah.
he hasn't really got much of a family, but about his dad and stuff. So the third interview talks about his first marriage. He talks about his parents a little bit more, and he's a lot more kind of like it's more personable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
we'll get to know him as well. We're getting to know him then. And then the fourth interview we did with him, that was actually shot after the premiere. So we did a
Oh.
premiere. We did a premiere in Sitges in Spain where Robert attended, and we did a big screen of it. And after the screening, Robert was like in tears. He was so kind of overjoyed by it. But then he came to us and said, "Oh, by the way, you didn't mention my film with Henry Fonda." Oh, okay. I would have really liked to mention that. And we're like, I don't fucking think you even talked about that film. And then me and Chris weren't happy with a couple of little things in the edit. Because when you see it on the big screen, you start noticing things more then. And we felt the last section with Doc was a little bit kind of film. There's no kind of narrative flow for it.
Yeah.
So Robert, again, I'll say openly, said, if you would, if you were interested in making some changes, I will pay you to do the changes. And we were like, no, we don't want any money off you. We don't want you to pay, because I think he knew it was going to cost us with regards to legals.
Yeah.
We'd already paid the legal fees and insurances, and he knew it would cost. So he went, if you're doing it, I will pay for it. And we said, no.
What a man.
Yeah, and we didn't want his money. And we then re-edited it then. We thought, we're going to fucking do it. Let's just change the ending, the whole last end. And we got this new interview with him in Sitges, and he was a lot more relaxed. I mean, he's so relaxed in that interview. He's proper like slouched down, he's chatting away. And that's where he talks about Halloween, and he talks about, Henry Fonda and that kind of stuff. And then we kind of changed the end of the dot then, where it was more about kind of like a little bit like the 90s, and how the horror genre flopped a little bit, and obviously he had to find other roles and how he then embraced it. So Robert then became like fully engaged. So we've learned now, we've always said, if we ever do another bio, we need to have that person multiple times. We can't, and the plan was originally one interview, and that's all the plan was. But by serendipity and by default, we had 4 interviews with him, and that without those 4 interviews and his investment. But by the time we did the 3rd interview, he was opening his archive up to us. Our friend Mikey Perez went over to Robert's house and went to his photo out.
Yeah, like I was in Stansted Airport and I was walking along and I was like, I looked over and there he was walking up the thing. I was like, but I was, I'm going to say about I was 14. I just couldn't even bring myself to go over. I was like, and I completely fanboyed. I was like, oh shit. But like for me, like as I said, the Nightmare on Elm Street was the first horror movie I watched. It was the first one. Like I actually have a Freddy tattoo.
Oh, brilliant! Oh, that's brilliant. That's a good one.
technically I actually have two. There's a smaller one on the bracelet, but like for me that shaped my horror
Yeah.
aspect. So when I seen this coming out, I was like, oh yeah, I have to. Like I remember you just dropped the trailer. I was actually watching for the Love of Horror live when the trailer dropped, and I
Oh,
had to drop out. So I listened to the lads quite a bit, and I had to drop out, and I was like, nope, gotta watch this now.
yeah. No,
Uh,
he's great. I mean, he's actually in London at Kleptomania in July. I mean, I'd recommend going to see him. While he still can get about. Obviously, the guy's 76. And I think
Unfortunately, it's not an option for me at this minute. We
yeah.
booked to go to for the Love
Oh,
of Horror in November.
okay. I know
Uh,
they're trying to get in for that as well, but obviously I know there's complications regards to obviously the other shows.
that's their legal battle. Let them have that.
Yeah,
But
yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean,
if that was to happen, unreal. But
I've tried to help a few times. Hopefully it will happen one day. I think it probably will, but I think definitely when you get the opportunity, if he's obviously in Ireland or anywhere at, he might do conventions over there. I would definitely go and see him because it's an experience you won't forget. It really
yeah,
is.
like I was very optimistic in the early days. Like we did when we set out to when this podcast started. Carl and Ian was one of the other lads that started it, and I wasn't part of it. And I came in after about 6 or 7 weeks, and here's King back now.
Hmm.
I came in and the guest fell by chance to us, and it was actually someone who worked on Nightmare 4.
Really?
It was the special effects mastermind Nick Benson,
Mhm.
who done the special effects for Nightmare 4. So when that happened, I was like, "Do you know what? I'm gonna be brazen here," and I reached out to him through the website to see if he'd come on. Like I didn't know how it goes or thing. Now it didn't happen, but I was optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it happens. I mean, I always find when we've done the documentaries in the past, when you go for an agent or go for a manager, 99% of the time it's a no. And
I'm pretty
also,
sure it might have been his wife
yeah,
that done it
okay.
because the girl's name was Nancy. So I put one and one together then, and I was like, oh. Now I could be wrong with that,
Oh, that
but
for that? Who's that for, Robert or
yeah,
for?
Robert, yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, Nancy operates his website. Yeah, Nancy does. Yeah, but
yeah,
Nancy's very, very protective over him. Nancy,
yeah.
she
She did say that. He only does a couple.
yeah, because I think probably Robert is. I've been there. He talks and talks, which is great. Obviously, podcast does, but he knackers himself out. And I think a little bit of Robert as well. Sometimes he says things he probably shouldn't say. Because he's so talkative, he gets carried away sometimes with some stuff that he says, and you kind of think, and you can see Nancy's eyes rolling. But when we were in situ with him in Spain, we went for his photo shoot, and it was fucking weird because we were in a car with him going up this hill in Spain and on this kind of balcony, and there were people chasing the car. It's fucking weird, and then they were all running men. And when we went up the hill to this photo area, where we have, so imagine this is it's like an old, real kind of typical Mediterranean kind of like balcony and little like staircase.
Out over the cliff.
Yeah. Literally, there's a beach over the cliff, which is a nudist beach. So everybody's fucking starting naked there. we're walking up this fucking hill with Freddy Krueger, and the fucking hill is literally, I reckon, 150 people, literally queuing with Freddy gloves and he's signing every fucking thing. And like Nancy's going to him, Robert, we've got to go. We've got his photo shoot. And me, Chris, and Adam are standing there like spare like plebs. We're signing a few things, obviously, because people are just signing shit. And then when we come back, again, long story short, people were chasing the car. We got to the hotel, and again, there must have been 100 people outside the hotel, and he stood there for fucking half an hour signing autographs on people. He was absolutely fucking shattered, and people were pushing him, not nastily, but pushing into him to get the crowds. Nancy's trying to usher him away. We then go and have something to eat and have a drink, and then there's fucking people queuing while he's eating his food, and he's stopping.
No,
he's stopping
like
eating.
that.
Yeah, and it's a shame. I get why they do it. I get why, but they're very crafty. They work. What they do, they had little kids with them, and they're pushing the little kid with a little poster, so he couldn't say no to them, could he? But it was like he was signing. Nancy was going, Robert, you've got to eat. Just. And she was saying to people, can you just please, he'll do it, but give us like 20 minutes so you can have something to eat. And he was just eating a fucking chip and signing stuff, and talking to people. But in the end, he had to go upstairs to bed because he was fucking shattered. But
he seems like that though. He seems like he's, as he says, even in the documentary it comes out, it's all about his fans. All
it is,
about
yeah. And I know it's really cliche. I know somebody said we had one review. It was a really nice review. But someone said it's a bit of a fluff piece. You know, it's about just trying how great he is. You know, there's no drama. You know, where's the negativity? There's fucking no negativity, and that's
why not?
True.
Yeah, like why not have a nice film or a nice documentary?
But the genuinely isn't negativity.
Yeah,
you know, everybody loves him. Everybody's worked with, really, you know, they love him. They can't. We had not one person, even. And when you interview people, you know, I've spoke to you off camera. You know, we interview people, and off camera, people slag people off. They always do. They always make a comment, and there's always some bitchy story. But we never put it in the documentary. Of course, we don't. Nobody did that on Robert. Nobody did. No. You know, nobody said a bad word against him.
Like there, you have the three sort of big actors of horror. Obviously, Kane Hodder, who was a stuntman at one stage, but obviously went on to be arguably the most decorated killer in horror. Really, you have Tony Todd, who essentially was one of the voices of horror with the Candyman voice and everything. And you have Robert, and like they're speaking so highly of him. And like at one stage, I'd say they were all competing for the same kind of jobs.
You think about it, you had them horror icons of, you know, and you had your Kane Hodder, obviously Robert, Doug Bradley, you know, and you had Bill Moseley came into that later on, obviously 2000 with
good old Chop Top.
Yeah, I mean, even through Chop Top years, you know, again because of horror, he wasn't really kind of like huge. He became huge because of 2000 and not what's it called?
Devil's Rejects.
The first one, House of Thousand Corpses, he blew up then, and then everybody then started releasing Chop Top. But again, you know, there's people. It's like, you know, these people just really appreciate him, and I think in the doc, you know, Andrew Divoff, who played the Wishmaster, the Djinn.
The thing he spoke about was brilliant.
He just says, you know, Robert was there. Robert had lived and breathed this kind of horror iconic thing. And in the bonus features of the doc, which probably you haven't obviously seen yet, we do a feature called Horror Icons, where we get more detail from like Kane and Bill about how they became their roles. Like a little featurette we've done, like a 25-minute featurette. But there's a bit in it where Adam Green, the director of Hatchet, says that, you know, he caught Robert and Kane talking on the set of Hatchet, and Robert said to him, you know, this is going to be a fucking icon for you. Just, you know, you've got Jason, but this is yours. This is, you know, and you know, and you're gonna have people following you because of this, and just really just embrace it and love it. For him to say that, there's no jealousy there at all. Then, do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, Kane's been given a second chance in terms of another high iconic character, and Robert's going fucking, you know, grab it by both hands, you know, embrace it. He's not going, you shouldn't be fucking doing horror, you know, you need to be better than this. And that just shows the man as well, you know, that he gives a fuck.
Well, it's funny that you actually mentioned that, or that came up. Like, I remember watching Hatchet, the first one, and when I seen Kane in it, and obviously Kane plays the dad in it as well.
He does, yeah.
Which I didn't really like, because I don't like when an actor plays two sort of people, but that's beyond the thing. And I said it to somebody. I says that he's better in that than he is as Jason. Or how could he be? And I was like, what do you mean? How could he be? I says, that's his franchise now.
It's his, yeah. I mean, he's not having to carry a franchise that's already been existed. I think actually, you know, we're talking about just rewinding very quickly. We talk about obviously Halloween, but the guy who plays Michael Myers now has fucking carried that franchise in 3 films.
Yeah.
Courtney Jude Law.
I don't know.
James Courtney.
Yeah. He's fucking brilliant. You know, he's embodied that character. But again, he's taking on a character that 5 people have played. Whereas with Hatchet, you're right. That gives Kane an opportunity to create something himself from scratch. And at the same time, I think Kane mentioned it in the doc. You know, that Kane, you know, that didn't have any acting experience. But Kane's actually quite good in that. You know.
Yeah, I thought he was very good. Yeah.
And there's more to it than just obviously lumbering around like Jason does. There's a lot more to it. Particularly with the dad character. And I've seen a couple of films with Kane in. He did one called Charlie's Farm, where it's a really good horror, Australian horror.
Enjoyed that one, yeah. He's a good one.
Yeah, and he's in it, but it's not as as a killer, and he's really good in it actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's really nice to see him, his career develop obviously as an actor, and again, there's elements where Robert would have supported him and obviously gave him advice and guidance, and uh, I think that that it's nice to see these people getting obviously their just deserves, really, in terms of the franchise of the horror genre.
Just before we wrap up tonight, there's one point that I wrote down when I watched it. I wrote it down intently so I wouldn't forget it. There was a scene in the documentary where he's compared to the likes of Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, Vincent Price, like for what he's done for horror in general, but in terms of movies as well, where he's had his fingerprints on things, whether people want to admit it or not. He has to be right up there as one of the big icons of horror, if not, in my opinion, probably the biggest.
Yeah, I think it's really strange how he's fit into that kind of group, and I hope to, I can explain why I think he's fit into it. I think because you think about the Hammer horror films, by the late 70s, they're dwindling. You've got, I think Dracula 1974, wherever it was, AD, whatever, and they're dwindling and they're getting campy and shit and shit, you know what I mean? And they disappear then. Obviously, then Christopher Lee has a resurgence. Years and years later, obviously, with Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, Cushing does A New Hope in 77, and then doesn't really do a lot after that, really. Cushing does the odd film here and there.
It was his last big role, really, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And then you've got Robert then, who appears, obviously, as Freddy Krueger in 84. Sorry, my dog just ran into the room, a little shit. Robert appears in 84, obviously, as Freddy. And I think because, unlike Jason and Michael Myers, this character speaks as a character personality, Robert then fits really nicely into just the end of those classic horror actors whose careers were ending. And I think that's why you can firmly put Robert in that group. And I think as well, because Robert is an actor, he's a stage actor, had 20 years experience plus before he played Freddy.
Yeah.
And he's not a stuntman. That's no disrespect to Kane, who's become a really good actor, and people like that. I think that's where, when you talk about Peter Cushing, Christopher Lee, you talk about Lon Chaney, Robert's name has to be mentioned in that.
Absolutely.
I think he's the last great horror icon.
Yeah.
We have our horror icons now, which are amazing. Tony Todd, Bill Moseley, Kane Hodder, Doug Bradley. Robert is the last of the greats.
Yeah.
And
I'd agree with
you. Yeah, he's still around, obviously, thank God. But I don't think he should fit in the category with, Gunnar Hansen and Bob Almar and that.
He is better than that.
Yeah, and that's again, it's no dig at those guys, Nick Castles and that, but I think Robert just kind of, because of his, Doug's a little bit sad actually. I'll give Doug Bradley his credit as Pinhead. Doug's from a theatre background, but I think because it came on a later age in '87, it just misses that a little bit, I think. But I think Robert definitely is, Kim saying, is the last great horror icon who's still here today, and the other guys are horror icons. Do you know what I mean?
He's a level above them.
Yeah.
I think the best way to say it would be, you're saying Robert's the horror icon. The others have iconic characters.
Yeah, to a degree. I think you look at Bill Moseley. He's got Chop Top. He's got obviously Otis Driftwood. He's done a lot of horror films. He's always appeared in horror films. He's a good actor. He's a strong character actor. Kane now obviously developed roles, and he's a strong character actor. Doug Bradley has developed roles. But I just think, even though they're good actors now, Robert already had that pedigree to start with theatre. When you're starring with Henry Fonda, and you're starring with Jeff Bridges and Richard Dreyfuss and and Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sally Field, and all these big directors that you're starring with, before you get to become an icon, you've already earned your stripes really as an actor. Now, a lot of these other guys fell into the roles. One of their first real roles, Kane is stuntman, then becomes Jason. Doug, his first proper role in theatre was Freddy Krueger, was Pinhead. Because he was friends with Clive Barker. Robert already had a massive career beforehand, where you recognise that face, you kind of knew who he was. With V. So I'm again digressing, but I do genuinely feel that Robert should be named alongside Cushing, Lee, Chaney, Price, Lugosi.
Absolutely, and it's been well earned over the
Yeah,
course
yeah.
of his career.
I don't think that many people would disagree with you, Gary. I don't
Yeah,
think that.
hopefully, yeah. And
Yeah,
again, it's really, and again, I know it's generational because a lot of them actors from the, are like, Lugosi's and Cheneys from the 30s right up to, the 70s. I just think there's a class.
mm,
If there's a class system, they're a higher class of character actors. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
I think they carried horror. Those guys did.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
they wore it as a badge of honor. And
Yeah,
They 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 are the reason we are where we are now.
I think I'm sure in the doc, I'm sure it is about Doug Bradley says about I think it's Lon Chaney. He says, my beautiful monster." I think he says,
Yeah, that's what he refers to it as.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, and I think that's the same with Robert. Robert sees. I mean, again, the first thing Robert said to us when we phoned him, the first conversation was, he said, "I will do an interview about Freddy Krueger, no problem." Because he said, "I understand that fucking dogs. I understand that Freddy Krueger is really important. I understand that. I understand he's a selling point. He's a poster boy. I.e., the poster behind you has Freddy Krueger on it.
yep,
Obviously, and he is the selling point. However, if you do a documentary about my life, I'll give you everything." Now, that means Robert understands quite clearly how important Freddy is to the
yeah,
fans. He understands how much of a selling point that character is. And that's where Robert's kind of developed that relationship with Freddy
yeah,
over the years, where he knows, that. And I think what's great for Robert now, I think he says it in the doc as well, that when he goes to conventions now, he has young children come to him because of Stranger Things. He
yeah,
recognises that. So, I really hope genuinely that in the next couple of years, Robert starts appearing in other stuff because of Stranger Things.
fingers crossed.
And again, I'm not bigging ourselves in the doc. It's so great seeing the reviews where people are saying, "Fuck, I didn't realise he did all this stuff. I'm going to go and check out,
Yeah,
Buster and Billy. I'm going to check out Stay Hungry. I'm going to go check out Big Wednesday." So I hope
Eaten
people,
Alive.
yeah, Eating Alive. But I hope people go and have a look now at his other stuff and go, "This fucking guy's worth a."
mm,
I'm not. I'm going to do a horror. I'm going to do a comedy. Let's get Robert in it. I'm going to do a romantic film. Let's get Robert in
yeah.
it. Why does it always have to be horror? Why is there,
I,
why?
I think, Gary. Sorry for cutting across you
No,
there.
fine.
When I watched this, I was absolutely enthralled by it because I said it to Greg after I watched it that it's actually now my favorite documentary that I've seen.
Oh, thank you. I really
Honestly, the way it was put together, the way it was filmed, and that good feeling about it, and the positivity about it. Like, yeah, we're talking about a horror icon, but like you say, it can be good. It can be
It can be,
entertaining.
there's no tragedy in Robert's life. There
No.
isn't in him. He's not there talking about fucking, he got touched as a kid and he got his first wife died or he had a car crash. There's not any of that. The story is about an actor who becomes an iconic character and has to battle with that role really, and that actually accepts it. And I've always said, people like, I think Robert's a little bit different, but I know another actor, I'm not going to mention his name, and we interviewed him, and he's a horror icon, and we interviewed him, and he was, after the interview, he was so fucking negative about the character, and I think you could tell there was a resentment for the character he played. And I remember walking away from that interview, and I remember saying to Chris, if it wasn't for that character, we would not be interviewing that guy now. And actually, the reason why there's fans queuing around the block at a convention is because of that character. Now, you can have all the BAFTAs you want, and the Golden Globes and the Oscars. You can have all that shit. But would you have got that if you would just stayed mainstream? Would you have got it? I doubt it. But the fact now that you, and same as Robert now, the fact that you have this legacy where you have T-shirts, posters, action figures, you have people talking about cosplaying as you. And when you go and you pass over, you'll always be fucking remembered forever as that character. That's really, and I think that's what's great about Robert. Robert understands that, how important Freddy Krueger is. And Freddy Krueger's a child molester, a fucking child killer. However, you ignore all that shit.
Yeah.
He understands how important the character is for the horror community.
Yeah.
And I think that's so fucking important. And that's why I think Robert is a great subject for his doc. I think coming across it now, because he doesn't resent it in any way. And I think he did at one stage. He said it in the doc. I think at one stage he thought, "Fuck, is this it?" And then he realised, hang on a minute, I'm sitting at a convention here and there's a queue of people around the block for 8 hours straight.
Idolising him.
Yeah, I'm being mobbed on the fucking street, because of this one character. That's fucking amazing,
And I have to say, this documentary is, if people don't know, like you say, enough about him, if they get to see this, then it will just be I think I fell in love with him, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, good. I hope so.
Absolutely, and I mean because Nightmare on Elm Street will be Greg's franchise. You know what I mean? I love my franchises are only one films because the rest of them are shit, like Texas Chainsaw now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But I absolutely love, like, I liked certain Nightmare films, but I love them man even more now after watching that
Good.
documentary.
No,
And
good.
thanks for that, and thanks to you and your.
No. I
your
think it's really important. You know, again, I don't mean morbid about stuff, but again, I'll talk about my friend Don,
Yeah.
who was from Return of the Living Dead. It was kind of really weird. We tried to do a documentary on him a few years before he passed away because he was an amazing character actor. He'd been in like literally from the 70s. He was in fucking, you know, every single Murder She Wrote, Columbo,
Yeah.
Kojak, fucking everything. And nobody gave a shit. No one wanted to be part of this project, you know, and it was really upsetting, really, for us.
Yeah.
When Don died, the fucking news outlets went mental. Oh, the character Don dies, and it was all over fucking Entertainment Weekly. It was all over fucking, you know, TMZ. Everyone was talking about it, and I remember going, "Where the fuck were these people when he was here?"
Yeah.
And Robert's
It's always the way.
But that's why we wanted to celebrate Robert when he's here, because
Yeah.
too many times these documentaries are made when people pass over. What's the fucking point then? So it becomes a legacy piece. This is one chapter in Robert's career, you know, and you know it ends at one chapter. There's another chapter which is coming, you know, with regards to Renaissance. I think.
I hope so.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope he gets like Brian Cox did. I hope he gets this Renaissance where people look beyond the genre and give him something to get his teeth into.
Wouldn't it be brilliant if he did get a Cox-esque like Renaissance?
Yeah, I think he should, and I think it doesn't have to be horror. It shouldn't be horror.
No.
It should be drama. Should be, get him in a drama. He'd be fucking amazing.
The man's just a great actor, isn't he?
Absolutely.
I think we'll let you go there, Gary.
Yeah, sorry.
Otherwise, we
can talk
we
for
can
hours.
sit here all night.
Yeah.
But
and
before
we
we go,
definitely have you back on.
Ask him the question. Go on.
Go on. We said to you first, so we can confirm you've seen both movies.
Yeah.
American Werewolf in London or Dog Soldiers.
Oh, I'm gonna get fucking battered for these Dog Soldiers.
My man.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Carl.
I'm getting hockeyed out with this
Yeah.
every week, man.
I love American Werewolf in London. We did a book on it with Paul Davis, and that was released. We sold out, you know, the whole behind the scenes. But something about it, when you watch Dog Soldiers, it's so fucking. Again, it's a lot like Dust Till Dawn. The fucking film just shit halfway through, and I think it's a really good film. I think I remember going to cinema to see it, and again, I think I experienced it at the cinema.
Yeah.
Didn't experience American Werewolf in London. You know, I was only one when it came out. You know,
Carl was 41.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely.
That's fair.
You were fully not expecting that when he said he wrote a book on American Werewolf.
No, yeah, our friend Paul wrote the book. We published it and designed it, but I got a lot of respect for the film. Not for the second, not for American Werewolf in Paris.
No,
that doesn't exist.
I watched that during COVID. I thought I'll give it another go.
Did it make you even more sick? Did it?
I think I'd prefer to have gotten COVID again. But what we'll do is we'll finish it up there. Gary, we want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to come on.
Absolutely.
And we're more than happy to have you back anytime.
Before you go, if you have anything coming up that you'd like to tell us about, or like to promote or anything?
Obviously, we've got what's it called? Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares. That's coming out on hopefully Blu-ray and streaming over here. We're just finalising the deal as we speak, just to get that out hopefully before October. And then we've got RoboDoc's Creation Robocop is a 4-part limited series on Screenbox. That comes out before the end of the year, I think November time. That'll be out on Blu-ray as well. We've got Police Academy coming out next year, 4-part series on that for the 40th anniversary. And we've got obviously our series, as mentioned earlier on Amazon Prime, Dark Deities Presents, comedy, anthology horror, a bit like Black Mirror, obviously, but with a very British cast.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got a few kind of like things on the go at the moment.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So we've loads to look forward to from Dead Mouse.
Yeah.
And just on that as well, a big shout out to the lads over in Screenbox for obviously giving us the chance to view this before we could. Big shout out to them. And if you do somehow have Screenbox over here, whether you have a VPN or not, or you're based in the States, make sure and go and check this out because it is the
Absolutely.
best documentary I've seen.
Period.
But we'll finish this the same way we finish every Friday night. In the words of the great George A. Romero, stay scared.
Woo!